Stem cells is the denominator of life. Who are these people? If you have a system perfectly set up, you're making billions and billions of dollars. This is a capitalism. My mom got sick when I was 13. She was 43. She was diagnosed with a deadly cancer, multiple myeloma. Beautiful about Chinese medicine is accepting that the web is the nature of the beast. Do you give up and go back to what you were doing? Or do you keep going? I actually started my own stem cell company because I saw a lot of problems in the industry because a lot of people are going into the field with the goal of making money.
Is there a possibility that your body can reject certain stem cell?
There's a chance of getting younger and younger and younger.
What is your biological age? Welcome to Multispective. I'm so excited to have you on air with us. How are you today?
Hi, Jenica. Wonderful.
I was super excited to have a recording with you today because, there's going to be a lot of things that we both have in common. One being that I live in China. You have a bit of a story of life here in China. So I can't really wait to hear sort of where it all kind of begins for you and how it all unravels for you.
You're in Shanghai. I was in your rivalry city, Beijing. So there's a big rivalry going on between the two cities. So I grew up on the university campus in Beijing. So surrounded by people who love learning and, this pursuit of knowledge. And I think of a pretty open atmosphere when it comes to wanting to absorb all that's going on around the world. We're very much interested in world affair. For me, now being a doctor, right, we were exposed to Chinese medicine and Western medicine all at the same time, and really with no prejudice against any one of them. So that's how I grew up, just being open to all possibilities and all forms of knowledge. Was there restrictions, under a big regime, right? It's a one government trying to govern. At the time was 1.2 billion people. Now is more, but so there are a lot of rules. And I did not like them in general because I don't like rules that do not make sense. They're just way too many. They're way too many. I think some rules are necessary. Some rules are excessive. So I felt a little bit constricted. I wanted to be more free. So that was kind of the sense I felt, even though I think I had just a wonderful childhood, despite the tyranny of my mom, but very few Chinese families do not have the motherly tyranny, and I had to deal with that, but nothing that unusual I felt. But even that said, traumas, small or big, can have a huge impact on us, even if we joke about it and we don't think there's much to it. It can leave a huge imprint on how we respond to the world and how we react and how our physiological response can be. So that said, I think I had really, really good upbringing, but I wanted to seek something more. There's something that's really exciting about America. So I grew up in the 80s. I went to I went to high school in 1983. And that's when China was just barely opening up, and there were all these, TV shows coming in. First time I heard American song, I think was in the 80s. Heard Country Road. I was like, wow, what a beautiful song. Mm-hmm. And the American TVs started to come in, and it's just a really, really fascinating world with all these races, all these technologies, an interesting way of being, of communicating with each other. And so I just found it really fascinating. And growing up on the university campus, we had foreign exchange students. So I saw a lot of foreign, students, black, white, whatever, Japan, from everywhere. They just seemed really fascinating. I was so intrigued by all these foreign students from another world. So I wanted to go explore. I heard of my parents are teachers, and they had some exceptional students. And of course, some of the best ones leave. They go abroad to mostly America. So I hear of their stories and their successes, and I wanted to come to America. So that's when I was 15, I already made up my mind that I was going to be in America, period. No matter what. I didn't know how, but I knew that's going to happen. So when I was 18, that's when the Tiananmen Square incident happened, and there was a big shift in the government policy. They were not happy with paying for college education. Basically, students are getting this for free, and then they not only they all want to leave after they graduate, but they're also making trouble. So the government made a decision to restrict um, the ability of students to leave China. So I had to make a decision when I was 18 to quickly make my exit. Otherwise, I probably would have to stay in China for another 10 years. So that was the beginning of the next stage in my life, which is the
Hmm.
adventure. And I wanted to come to America. And of course, it really depended on me making every step. So as an 18-year-old, um, to jump through the hoops of the bureaucracy of every step of the way, there's a lot of bureaucracy. So whatever that was required,
Yeah.
including, the first step is to know what schools I was going to apply for, because that was my only way out, which was to find a university to attend. And even that was difficult because the only place to find information, I think it's called Peterson's guide. The only place to find that information was to go to this one library in Beijing. And that library only allowed students who were above the third year of college. So I was first year, so I couldn't even get in. So that was how do you get into the place where there's a book
Mm.
that lists all the colleges? But that was my,
Yeah.
this is like a simple
Challenge. Yeah.
obstacle, like how I don't have the information. How do I get in? So
Hmm.
I wrote about it in my book, Tiger of Beijing, and that's on Amazon. And there's also an Audible version. So I talk about this interesting, this fight, right? So I'm fighting a system. How do I get out? But the book actually started with my visa rejection. So after working very hard for a year and a half
Hmm.
and being very confident that I got a great scholarship, and I went to the embassy, and they just flatly rejected me. So the book started with rejection, and
Hmm.
it's about what do you do? Do you give up and go back to what you were doing? Or do you keep going? So I think one thing about me is that I'm very good at pivoting. I can turn something that's not good into something that's really good.
Hmm.
Um, I've always because I figured there's really good angle to this. There's
Yeah.
something that's going to be really good that can come out of this.
I firstly find it really fascinating that you must be in such a unique position to have had to have been in China and learned about Asian medicine versus Western medicine. That was the first thing that you talked about. So, can you just talk to me a little bit about that for anyone's kind of curious as to how different are they? How do they work? Um, Tell us what is the difference between Asian
Yeah,
medicine and Western
I
medicine?
think that for China and probably same for India, um, people were looking at answers by observation. So they go into the natural world to see what can help the person heal, and they also go inward to look at to visualize the human body. For example, the Chinese believe in meridians, so these energy channels, and this is not arbitrary. It's because somebody actually saw the channels. They were meditating and they saw these channels lit up in a human body, and that's how energy was going through. So it's a very inward way of looking at the body. So it's not dissecting the body into little parts. It's looking at this overall body and to see how everything come together. Um, and what it does is that it looks at the body as a very intricate web. So if you look at Western medicine, I think is more like multiple linear relationships all put together. So people think, oh, the kidneys is only to filter the fluid and then secrete urine. So there's one relationship. But the Chinese may look at that as being connected to all these other organs and allowing the energy to flow through. And if something's wrong with another organ, that could affect the kidneys. And that is not a concept of Western medicine. So Western medicine is, while it's superb at dissection and at figuring out the very the bottom elements, the denominators of what's happening on a molecular level or on a particular organ level, it's forgetting that this organ and this relationship that's existing in that organ is not floating in space, is actually inside a complex web. And what's
Hmm.
beautiful about Chinese medicine is accepting that the web is the nature of the beast. So if you can accept that there is such a web, and that you can't just think that you put one drug and throwing at one little linear relationship, that's all you're going to affect. You don't think it's going to affect the entire web, then you're being very, very naive. And that's the thing, that's a beef I have about Western medicine. It's a naivety. It's been childish.
Mm.
It's as beautiful and persistent as it is at finding out the bottom, the last bit of connection, is forgetting the forest, right? You're focusing so much on this one tree that you're
Right.
forgetting to look at the whole forest. So both are important. Both are really interesting. I specialize in stem cell therapy. Who brought stem cells into the world? The Western medicine. But stem cells is the denominator of life. That's what we came from. The first stem cell is the
Mm.
fertilized egg. From that stem cell, it comes everything. That's intelligence. It encompasses everything.
Mm.
So it has the ability that cell can visualize the web because the cell can form that web. But without Western medicine, we wouldn't know about these cells, and we wouldn't have had these incredible therapies at healing the body. So both are powerful and important. So the fact that I love stem cell therapy is all of a sudden I can be really holistic, but also I can be very granular. That I'm bringing these
Mm.
cells that are really powerful, that's discovered by Western medicine, that we're
Right.
dissecting these cells from particular tissue and bringing it back into the body. And we're able to find out how the cells communicate with the body. All these growth factors, cytokines, and exosomes they send out to the body. So now I have a way of integrating. Whereas before, just studying Western medicine in a traditional medical school in the US, they do not teach me any tools to integrate with anything that's holistic, really. Not really. But Chinese medicine has this overall broad view of the systems and of this poetic language of heat, cold, and dampness, and airiness. But then how do I integrate that with my knowledge of how the organs are functioning on a granular level?
Mm.
It's very hard to bring the two together. But functional medicine, anti-aging medicine, and now stem cell science is able to has a language to bring the two, somehow can weave them together.
I can imagine, like, when you went to the States, knowing what you knew about Asian medicine at that point must have been quite frustrating, because questions maybe you must have asked, or the way you were understanding and interpreting what they were teaching must have been quite unfulfilling in a sense, because you're here understanding things on a different.
Against it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I was growing up, okay, just my mom's story. I when I was growing up, our drawers was full of, half is Chinese medicine, half is Western medicine. And she would just ask us what our symptoms are, and like a wizard, pull out one of those medications. It could be a
Right.
Western medicine, it could be Chinese medicine. We don't know, but she knows. She knows
Mm.
in what situations which one might work the best. But that's kind of the extent of Chinese medicine I knew. And then my mom got sick when I was 13. She was 43. She was diagnosed with a deadly cancer, multiple myeloma. Most people don't survive for more than a few years. So she was in the hospital for 6 months. Everybody that was on the same ward with her pretty much walked in and carried out on a stretcher dead. And so 6 months later, after 6 rounds of chemotherapy, she said, "Get me out of here. I don't think it's a good idea for me to keep going on this trajectory." So she completely shifted her approach. She went to a Chinese medicine doctor, got a prescription of all these herbs, and all that she did was to drink this concoction that my dad helped to brew every morning, every night. Smelled nasty. And so all she did was drinking this potion morning
Mm.
and night. And in the morning, did an hour of aerobics. And within 6 months, all her markers were completely normal. She was cancer free, and she went back to work. And she lived another 32 years. Very, very enjoyable years. So
Mm.
that was the kind of, in my face, what's going on with Chinese medicine? These doctors are throwing the best of the best tumor hospital in China. How come
Mm.
they couldn't get her better? How come they couldn't save all these people that came onto the ward? And it was so successful to the point where the chief doctor, the head doctor in that tumor hospital, came to our house asking my mom for the recipe that she was given. And I think he kind of missed the point, because Chinese medicine is not one size fits all. Each
Mm.
person will have a different constitution. Let's say two people are diagnosed with cancer, the exact same cancer. They could have a completely different origin of why they were sick. One could be have issue with the liver, the meridian that's governing the liver. Another one could be the blood system. So you don't treat everybody the same way, even though they have the same diagnosis. So that's what people
Right.
don't understand, that Chinese medicine may treat the same diagnosis with completely different approaches based on each person's constitution and their exact energy or deficiencies. So that's what that doctor
Yeah.
was not. He was utilizing Western approach, thinking, oh yeah, this concoction works, but it works because it worked for my mom. So each person needs to have a different concoction. But when I came here, so I studied acupressure before I came to America because I was interested. I've heard so many incredible healing stories from qigong. That's a Chinese
Yeah.
meditative work, and also just Chinese medicine. You use these meridians. You tap into the energy system, and you can actually heal the body. So I went to a master and I learned how to do acupressure, basically using my fingers as the acupuncture instrument, right? Instead of a needle, I'm using my hand and conveying the energy. And so to me, it just is second nature because I know how much it can help. I was so confident that I was just going to come to America, go to a college, and hang my little shingle and charge $20 per session. I got it all figured out, right? I was like, $20 per session. How much does it take me to earn my my my
Yeah.
monthly allowance, so to be able to live, because my scholarship wasn't adequate and cover my tuition but not living expenses. So when I went to when I first arrived, I was in San Francisco. You would think that San Francisco is one of the most open places, right, in the U.S. because we
Yeah.
were the more hippie. There are a lot of
Liberal
hippies
and
in
whatever.
San
Yeah.
Francisco,
Yeah.
but
True.
I was amazed that how I had to be very careful talking about Chinese medicine or acupuncture because people would think that I'm just weird, that like I knew that if I start talking with people, it glazes over and they think that, that I'm a very strange person. So I just stopped talking about it. And then I went to UCLA for medical school. You would think this is West Coast, again, very
Yeah.
open. And I remember meeting this MD PhD student who's very, very smart, very nerdy. And I happened to mention acupuncture. He said, well, that there's no evidence that acupuncture works. I said, are you serious? I said, have you looked at, do you know how long people have been doing it, thousands of years, and how well it works? And then he said, well, and he said, well, we don't know how it works. I said, have you ever read any articles? Have you read all the research about acupuncture that are looking at different mechanisms of how it works? It's a very, very active area of research. There's reams and reams of paper published. So it's interesting that one is that he's going to deny that it doesn't work. And once that's refuted, he said, well, we don't know how it works. So that's his rejection of why I should not put any
Yeah.
stock into this particular form of therapy.
Well, what are the reasons for why they insist on doing things the Western way when there is a lot of evidence that shows the other way? Is it just because of
Yeah.
money related?
So follow the money definitely is probably
Yeah.
your most powerful indicators. So definitely, there's no incentive if you have a system perfectly set up from obtaining these chemicals from petroleum-based sources, and you're making billions and billions of dollars. And then you've worked with insurance companies that worked everything out. The insurance companies can charge people all this money, and then it's going to basically, pay. They would charge huge amount of money, but between the insurance company and the big pharma, their prices, that's their thing, right? It's very easy going. But where did the money come from? From the people. So
Yeah.
they have extracted tremendous amount of wealth from the everyday people. They worked their ass off, and they get sick, and now they have to pay more, and they keep paying, and you take one drug and that has side effects, you have to take another drug, and then you usually stay on them for life. I know this for 100% certainty because I worked so much in this field. I've worked at the VA hospital. Nobody gets off a drug. You only add on more. So you'd be lucky by the time you're 65, you've only taken 10 drugs. You're very lucky.
For life.
How amazing
Yeah.
as an industry, how perfect, right? It's a perfect enclosed system. This is a capitalism. We're about making profit. So if it doesn't make profit, There's no reason for any of these entities to promote this. If you only focus on money and profit, then there's a direction of where the society is going to go. So there has to be some counterbalances. Someone has to be wise enough and with enough integrity to say, hey, this is not the right thing to do. How about we try a different approach, because people are really sick and they have donated their life's earnings to these companies. So is this how the society should go? But people who are awakened, like me, like a lot of doctors, like a lot of people, everyday people, patients, we are seeking a different way of healing. And we're the lucky ones, because a lot of people are blinded, are completely fooled, and they don't even know that they're fooled. Because I see these comments on Instagram. I don't go to Facebook anymore, but I think it's probably more toxic than the Instagram. That's my sense. But even on Instagram, when I talk about peptides and something, and there invariably somebody's going to say, "Well, what about the FDA? Did FDA ever approve?" Blah blah blah. I mean, they are so sold of this entire system. They don't. They're not thinking about how many drugs are damaging people, just how dangerous so many of the FDA approved drugs are, and they are still defending as if that the FDA is the end all be all at protecting you. I'm sorry, a vast amount of FDA budget comes from big pharma. You don't think that when you take money from people that there are certain conditions, that there are certain, you think you are just going to be given free money? I'm sorry, that has been very, very naive.
How does the medical like industry work in China, in the sense that, if they really are healing people from the absolute root, how are they able to finance? Or is it that they're not very like finance and corporate oriented over here?
I think it's a lot less, but it's still very much affected by the Western medicine model. So there's a lot of, they have their Chinese equivalent of the FDA. Things go through different studies, which is great. One thing is a little scary about China is that the Chinese people are very ingenious. Sometimes that they, I hate this part about, that I hear about China, is that people make fake stuff. So there has to be strong regulations that help protect the public. The Chinese in general, as a population, is very much into health, because that's kind of the fabric of the society. That's how China has been, because all the food, every food item, there's people talk about what the health benefits are. So in certain weather, or you have certain condition, you eat this kind of food and make this kind of soup. That is just part of the Chinese way of living. So I think India is the same way. I think people are more conscious about it. There's still a huge Western approach, although in each hospital there are Chinese medicine departments. So you can choose to go to the Chinese medicine department or your other doctors. It's all in the same hospital. So Chinese medicine is part of the system. In that sense, is nice.
Pain and pain management. Is that something, that they also pay a lot of attention to in China when someone is, hurt, they've been injured? Pain, do they first provide them with pain medicine, or is that mostly just a Western thing?
I think the quick fix of using something to dull the pain, that's a more Western approach. I think the Chinese, they probably understand the pain is a signal of things that are not flowing correctly in the body. There's blockages and there's inflammation, there's trapped energy, and they probably want to do things that help to release that first, rather than just to numb it. Just, why don't we go for the root of the pain? Let's fix what's causing the pain rather than numbing the pain. So I think that's a major difference, that they use pain more like a signal.
It is really true. It's really interesting because, like, over here, whenever I had to go to the doctor for anything, one of the first things that they do give me is like paracetamol, Western Tylenol, like, Western forms of pain medication. And I've actually asked, like, do you not have any, like, if I'm taking Chinese medication to heal this part, like, do you have anything that I can take, any Chinese medicine, subside the pain that I'm experiencing? And they're like, no, that doesn't, that doesn't exist. So I always found that really fascinating.
Yeah, well, acupuncture is really great for pain relief. So I don't know if people are interested in Chinese medicine, they absolutely need to read the book, The Web with No Weaver. It's written by a journalist that went with Kissinger and Nixon to visit China when China first opened its door to the West. And I think it was one staff member that got appendicitis so acute appendicitis. And they did the whole operation with no anesthesia except for acupuncture. So this journalist saw the whole thing happen. He could not believe it. That's when he started diving into Chinese medicine. He was like, how did these needles stop the pain? Like, what is
Yeah.
going on in this form of medicine? Yeah, so that's the concept of the web with no weaver, right? We don't know exactly who set up the web, but there is a web. So how do we respect the complexity of the web?
When you were young growing up, you mentioned being around during the Tiananmen Square and, how there were massive changes politically that were happening. And I did hear that there was a lot of intellectual content, books, research, information that was kind of burned away and removed. So can you tell me, like, how did that affect medicine and the whole understanding of that as well?
I don't know if that affected medicine. I think that affected how people communicated with each other, how what people felt they could say or not say. So people, I think, just put their head down and focus more on daily living, instead of trying to challenge the authority. But I think the Chinese system has its merits because it's meritocracy. So
Mm.
you're not going to get to the top because you're rich, because you have money. You get to the top because you're capable, because you have gone through layers and layers of challenges of governing a smaller population, from a city to a province, all the way up to the state level. So you have to show that you are fully capable. And there's a way of consulting with a group of highly capable people, like these high officials and higher minds that has the grand vision. So they're
Mm.
able to make adjustments. You give it time, it will make adjustments. Are there sometimes crazy people that make crazy decisions? Yes, it can happen. But China has learned its lesson from the Cultural Revolution, etc. So it's making provisions to prevent that from happening.
Mm.
So that's why the country has done so well, exceptionally well. I would say a plus in the world of country governing. It has done an incredible job because of the meritocracy, because it has a group of people that can self-correct. Every 5 years, it self-corrects, right? The direction may not be perfect, but then it can correct itself again. So it's always moving forward, making
Mm.
adjustments. So
Mm.
now 300 million people lifted up out of poverty. Can you say that anywhere else in the world? Um, can America lift its homeless people out of
Mm.
poverty? What has it done for its homeless? So you
Mm.
really need to look at what the country has devoted so much resource into making everybody's life better. So it's pretty remarkable. It's about elevation of the living standard for everyone.
Mm.
So I think even though there's a shift that a lot of people thought of as negative because people couldn't speak out as much, but by working together, following certain decisions that everybody agreed that this is a general right decision, right direction, the country thrived. I left the
Mm.
country 33 years ago. Now I am blown. My mind is blown. How amazing everything
Yeah.
is. It's more abundant than the United States.
When China opened up to, the Western world, at that point, I remember you mentioned that you were very excited and like keen to move to the US. What was the general narrative of here that made people kind of want to explore the Western world or to see the Western world? What was being said on the news or, in terms of opportunity? Like, what was the reason for why so many kids at that point wanted to go overseas?
That is more advanced, right? It's more convenient. It's the countries, there's more opportunity. People can really have a good life. Um, yeah, so that's the thing, which is true. There are a lot of opportunities. Even just looking at going to school, going to college. In China, you have to be really, really good and smart to get into a university because the competition is fierce. In
Mm.
my year, Beijing is the easiest place to get into a college because there's so many more colleges. Um, but only 1 out of 7 students in my year could actually enter a college. Are the other
Mm. Wow.
6 out of 7 students are all incapable? No, there are a lot of very smart, very capable students. They couldn't get in. But my year was the easiest. Guess what the ratio was the year after? Is 1 out of 13. So the competition is just so hard to imagine, right? Americans
Mm.
can't imagine. You can be really good and you just can't get in.
I'm actually pretty surprised though that there was a lot of this positive kind of news around living overseas. Like, what was the intention for them to kind of present the
Oh,
Western
the
part of the
government was
world?
not trying to present anything. I think it's the people who, the government just allowed television, basically. They allowed TV series to
Access
come in,
to
right? I
okay.
love Hunter. I don't know if any of your, listeners know Hunter, the detective story. I loved Hunter. I just thought he was so cool. But it was about
Yeah.
LA, the police department. So, but there are different movies, and I think the Hollywood had a huge part in creating that attraction and myth of just how cool it is to be
Mm.
in the Western world, especially America. So yeah, it's not definitely not the government's doing, and I'm sure they didn't know how to stop it. They didn't know how to stop this glamour,
Right.
but but
Yeah. And
people,
hence
you
why
know,
they created like difficult visa processes afterwards, right? Because it was like,
it was difficult.
we're
Yeah, at
getting
the
way
time
too
when
much
I was
Western.
leaving,
Yeah.
we had two exit permits. So you have to go apply for the first exit permit, stating your purpose of leaving this country in China, leaving China, and then you go to whatever country you want to go to, like America. You get your visa, but with the visa, you had to go back to the Chinese government and show that indeed your visa correspond to the first exit permit. And if the two matches, they will give you the second exit permit, because without the second exit permit, you couldn't buy a flight ticket. So there was a lot more control. Now is a lot easier.
And you mentioned there was meritocracy. So would you say that like was that also merit based to an extent? Like, sponsoring visas or offering even the ability to get a visa, was that based on also what kind of skills you had and where you were in terms of what
Well, the
knowledge you
visa
had
is
to offer?
determined by the American embassy,
Right.
American, their policy. So definitely they will pick people that have, I think mostly have been able to show that they have a good, they've been accepted by university. Usually that's how Chinese people left the country to go study. And then they have to show that there's good sponsor. So an economic sponsor, basically somebody that's
Mm,
willing to put their own credit on the line, put their own,
yeah.
finances on the line, saying, okay, something happens to the person, I'll take care of the person. That's what they're looking at. I was rejected because I didn't have a good sponsor. So even though I grew up in a very intellectual family, but my family had no connections. Didn't know any officials. We didn't know any rich people. We had no families overseas. We're just not very well connected. We're just common folks. I was
Mm,
going to come to
yeah,
America
fair
and wash
enough.
dishes. I was going to start with dishes and then go up from there. I was like, oh, I'll sweep the floor. I'll do
Yeah.
the dishes. I'll do anything. Yeah, I knew I was going to
Yeah.
survive. I was willing to work. So but that didn't matter. They
Yeah.
didn't need you to promise that you're going to work. They want you to show that you actually can, have someone to take care of you. Yeah.
How did that sort of like affect your sort of plans and your whole vision and
Well, that put
mentality
me
to do
right
that?
at that stop when they rejected my visa. So I talked about in the book that I actually went into like a slight depression for 3 days. So it doesn't last long. I was so shocked that I was rejected. I think I was cocky. So when you're young, you're cocky. Like, of course, I've got a great scholarship. Of course, I'm going to America. And so
Yeah.
slap on the face. Nope. That's it.
Yeah.
What do? I worked tirelessly for 18 months to get to this point. And I was supposed to be boarding a plane, in a few days, but now I'm sitting back down in my parents' place. The question is do I give up or do I pivot? And what happened was that I got really angry. So I just, the feeling of depression, of sadness, of being disappointed turned into this huge upswing of anger that who are these people to stop me from reaching my dream? So my decision was that if the reason I was rejected was because I didn't know anybody that was good enough in their eyes to sponsor me, then I'm just going to have to know somebody. So then I figured out what the direction is, which is to know somebody. Then I set out to see if I can know somebody. And I took the yellow pages of Beijing and went from there. So let me just start. I have to start somewhere. I have to get to somebody. And so
Yeah.
I took the yellow pages of Beijing and flipped into the pages of hotels. the best hotels, 5-star hotels. And I started to call random rooms. So that's how I decided to rebel, right? That's kind of like my rebellious spirit, telling me that I'm going to do whatever it takes. So I don't, since I didn't know anybody, just have to start somewhere. I put myself at some risk, some, precarious situations. But eventually I got myself a job as a tour guide. Um, and, and took a group of Americans, mostly Americans, to Tibet as a tour guide. And then I faced more obstacles on a personal level because of the person I was involved with. The struggle to survive in a new culture where you're very isolated. So I was very isolated, and that was on purpose from this person that I was with. So I was isolated and didn't know any about resources, didn't know where to go, but at the same time felt that I was getting crushed.
Did this person know that you were, well, your initial intention was kind of for a sponsorship at that point, or was it something that kind of naturally just evolved over time?
No, this was a romance, right? So I met an American man. Yeah, so that was a romance. The purpose was romance. It was
Okay.
right, being with somebody you love and possibly having a life together. So
Mm.
that initially the person knew that I was looking for a sponsor, but still, you can't be looking for a sponsor and have a romance at the
And
same
yeah,
time. And
exactly.
then that evolved, and so, but the intention had always been that it was a romance. Yeah, but
Mm.
unfortunately, people are flawed, and people can do things that are not so good for others.
Yeah.
So people hurt each other. Unfortunately, that was what I ran into. That this person was hurting me because of his own flaws, his own
Mm.
psychic wounds, and just his own immaturity. So, but the pain is nonetheless very, very difficult to
Yeah.
bear. But so that was the second half of the book, is how do you liberate yourself and to save your own, really to save my soul, because I was
Mm.
faced with either I tolerate that kind of um, really it's abuse. I appreciate so many things about America, the American system that actually saved me, because I was so isolated. I had so little knowledge of how everything works in this country that I thought if I left this person, I would just be on the streets. And I did not want to be on the street of San Francisco. It's so damn cold. I know people think this is really nice California, but it was cold. I did not want to be on the street,
Yeah.
but I didn't know where to go. It's not until friends of this person told me, hey, there are all these avenues that help with people who are in these difficult situations. So that is a beautiful thing about about America, because I think in American spirit, there's a lot of charity. There's a lot of wanting to help others. And maybe this is part of the Christian tradition. It's beautiful because people have, these nonprofit organizations, people set things up in order to help others. And it's
Mm.
because of people like that that actually I had a place to go.
And what was that help specifically that you got?
I went to an Asian women's shelter. So from that shelter, I went into a transitional housing. Unfortunately, there are only 3 months I had, and then I had to get out. And that was difficult. But America also has the system, if you want to go to college, right? You have no money. Borrow money, for God's sake. Borrow money so you get to the place that you need to go, and then pay it off. And that's what I
Mm.
did. I know money. I wanted to go to school. I had to live. So I borrowed. And thank God we had that system in place.
And in what ways did the shelter kind of support you? This is actually going to be useful for anyone that might be, looking for shelters to get out of their own relationships.
Well, when you are in a relationship where one person is trying to control and manipulate and put things in your mind and make you believe that everything is your fault, or you are not normal, you're not thinking straight. But it's really that they are doing things only to their own benefit. And they're,
Mm.
in a sense, gaslighting you into belief otherwise. And or they may do things either psychologically or physically to you, and then turn around telling you how much they love you. And it's very confusing for a young person. I don't
Mm.
care if you're a man or a woman, because this book I've written, I've got, both men and women telling me how much they resonated, even from the abusive relationship side, because men get abused just like women. and there are some really vicious women out there. So I don't,
Mm,
sugarcoat who women are, because women can be very vicious, can be very
mm,
manipulative, and can
mm-hmm,
be violent. So but then they can also manipulate, right? They can tell you how much they love you. So it gets really confusing when someone keep telling you how much they love you and at the same
mm,
time hurt you so badly. So how do you reconcile that when you're in the middle of it? Is you are just confused. You don't know what to
mm,
believe. You're torn apart. So when you get out of it, what I learned in the shelter was that all the things that was described as okay things to do, like pushing, shoving, like these things that are bordering on violence, well, actually is violence, are not okay, or certain ways that they speak to you are really, meant at subduing your spirit.
that's great that they offer this kind of support as well, this like form of therapy or sort of sitting with you and actually unraveling all of that kind of false narrative that has been injected into you, as opposed to in terms of helpful resourcing. Providing you a bed, providing you a space, providing you food, and all of that stuff. There's the other element, which is imperative
Yeah,
in actually helping you
safety.
reintegrate into the world. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
safety, and then also, yeah, seeing other women who were in similar situations. Some actually a
Mm,
lot worse than me. I remember seeing this Indian woman, beautiful lady with a beautiful little boy. I think the boy was like 4 or 5 years old, and she was almost killed by her ex-husband, her husband, and in-laws. That it's okay in her culture, I guess not all of India, but definitely for some, it's okay to kill. I mean, the way that they treat women, which to me was mind-boggling. That
mm,
yeah, she was almost choked to death at one point. It just the things that are happening is really
yeah.
really unfortunate.
So you get out of the shelter, they provide you all this support for 3 months, and then you're told to like move on to the next part. What do
Yeah,
you do
you're out.
next? Yeah, how did
Oh
you
gosh,
figure out life?
I unfortunately I fell through, into the same trap I'm sure many women fell into. The person that I would escape from comes in telling me how much they love me, how much they're gonna help me, and I fell back into that trap. Um, Eventually that didn't end very well. I think women need to be very careful. So I was young. I learned a lot of things from books, right? The book said that love is the most powerful force in the universe. So it can conquer anything. I was like, yeah, I got this. All I need to do is to love him. I'm gonna love him so much
Yeah.
that all the problems are gonna be left away.
Yeah, no, of
Oh,
course.
was I wrong? Yeah. So I realized because I kept on loving, kept on trying to make him feel secure, and then to the point where I was wearing so thin that and I was hurt so much that I
Mm,
realized that I better put the life jacket on myself because I was going to drown. The
yeah.
only way that things can turn around is that I leave. Maybe if I leave, it's going to trigger enough of a wake up call that he will seek
Mm,
something
yeah.
for to salvage himself. I don't know if that happened because I'm not in touch with him. I really hope he did. I hope he became just a more whole of a person.
So how did you finally leave?
I went to the shelter and
Again. Okay.
yeah, I
Yeah.
contacted them and met up with somebody who took me to this secret location that abusers cannot find.
Was it around at this point when you decided to take a loan and start to kind of pursue your education further?
Yeah, so if I go back to school, then I needed a loan. At the time, it was very difficult because if I was not divorced on paper, he had plenty of money, so I did not qualify for a loan. So it doesn't matter how, as long as I was married to this person, then I didn't qualify for a loan. So that was difficult. And of course, at the time, I didn't have money to get a divorce. So that's another part. I think that's a flaw in the system that people have trouble have, you
Mm,
don't have money, it's hard to even free yourself.
mm.
And luckily, I talked about in the book, I lucked out. I ended up getting one of the most famous attorneys in the United States to take my case. So I just, so that's why there's a lot of drama in this, in my life. It's really interesting, but I lucked out. But there should be a system that makes it easier.
Yeah, that's it's not easy to sort of get like pro bono cases and stuff, especially because generally lawyers are just already so overwhelmed with
Yeah.
thousands and thousands of cases.
What if the other person, like, so it's a good thing that this person that left right, my ex-husband had some resources. So someone was willing to take this on pro bono
Mm.
cases. What if he was just a poor bastard, just an asshole, no money?
Yeah.
Well, what happens
Yeah.
then? Who's going to take this pro bono case?
Mm.
I hope I hope there are organizations that really help women like that. I really, really
Mm.
hope so.
So walk me through so then how you start to rebuild your life a little bit. You know, you said you started studying and you were studying medicine over there, and it was really interesting what you were saying earlier about sort of the Western, really delving into the Western medicine over there, and you know, you were trying to incorporate some of your Eastern understanding. How did this sort of manifest into what you speak about today?
I went to first of all figure out what I wanted to study, and I remember how much I love the mystery of life. So just biology, just anything, animals, plants, just life itself. What the hell's going on? How do these things know how to grow and how to be? I mean, this is just incredible. So I was fascinated by the mystery. And so I went to study biology and wanting to do, I really wanted to be a professor, to be honest. I wanted to,
Oh.
I wanted to be learning all the time. I just wanted to spend my life learning and, communicating about knowledge. But I didn't like research because I found it very tedious, very boring, because you are literally spending a few years of your life answering a very limited
Mm.
question, because that's how research is done. I do like people. I like interacting with people. I have I'm good at relating to people and communicating with people. And when I went to this fellowship in New York, this little research fellowship, that's when I realized I hated research, but really enjoyed the atmosphere of a clinic. I went to an obstetrician's clinic and just found it fascinating to be dealing with these prospective parents and these couples, and then looking at how to use technology, the ultrasound and the labs. And it's just really interesting. So that's when I decided I wanted to be a doctor. I got into a few medical schools, and UCLA was one of them. And yeah, that's when the journey of diving deeper into Western medicine came about, realizing
Mm.
that is fascinating system, powerful but prejudiced and limited in its views of the body, and then wanting to broaden that view. But a lot of times, the Western medicine, especially when it comes to chronic illnesses, has very, very limited abilities. It's because it doesn't understand so many of the chronic illnesses has this web of
Mm.
interactions going on in the body, and it's trying to address everything simplistically, and it just fails. So Chinese medicine, the holistic view, and then encountering stem cells, realizing what I can get these cells, and this is one little thing I put in the body, and it can do so many things. It can go out anywhere it needs repair and get there and start to send signals to break down scar tissue, to reduce inflammation, to promote more blood vessel formation, to rescue damaged cells, to kill off cancer cells, to give you fresh mitochondria so
Mm.
your cells can function at a higher level, and also to change your whole immune environment so your body is waking up to help you repair. Like, it does all these things all at once, and it tells your own stem
Mm.
cells to replicate, or it can differentiate and becomes your own tissue cells. So it'll give you fresh new tissue. It does all these things effortlessly. All I have to do is to put it in the body. Of course, the veins is the easiest place because it travels throughout the body. And it's just so elegant and it's so fun. It addresses multiple root causes all at once.
So how can we access it? Where is the stem cell in our body, and how can we extract it, and how can we insert it into our body?
You can always get it from your own self. But I have a news for you. Your own cells are, at least at the technology we have right now, your own cells are not as good as the cells I can get for you from a younger source. The best source will be the umbilical cord. That, the best, and the source that's free of ethical considerations, right? You're not hurting another human being. You're just collecting the tissue that's usually going to be tossed into the trash after a healthy baby is born. So that's the source that we're getting. Your cells are everywhere. You do have stem cells in your bone marrow, in your fat, in your tissues. There are a lot of stem cells everywhere, but your cells are going to be your age and will have gone through all the things that you've done in your life that may not be so good for the cells. every alcoholic drink you have, cigarette smoke, and or the bad air, the pollutions that you've encountered, or the bad oils, and the toxic stuff that's in your food and your cosmetics. All these are going into your body to damage all your cells, including your stem cells. So if you take those out, not to mention genetically, some people have predispositions, right? Their system may not be so good. Their stem cells may not be so good. A lot of people think autoimmune diseases are stem cell disease. A lot of the stem cells are damaged. So if you want to use your own, it may not work as well. But if you get it from a newborn, healthy baby with who's full of life energy and use that to repair, that's going to take it to the next level. And that's what I use in the clinic. So we source these cells from live, healthy births, only from cesarean section, because you don't go through the vaginal canal. You don't risk the contamination. So a cesarean section, you get it from a surgical field and you obtain these tissue, and that's sent to a lab, and the mother's baby, they go through very strict screening of everything from genetic diseases to their toxic exposures and just everything the mother has gone through in life, and family history, and everything is sexual history, etc., travel history, everything's screened for, and then the tissue is screened for certain infectious agents that's required by the American Association of Tissue Banks, because we're really doing a tissue transplant. We're transplanting cells. These are not drugs. These are not made by humans. These are made by something that's much more intelligent than what's going on right here. So you can get those cells from these tissue and then put in the right place. So that's the art of medicine. You have to get the right cells. What kind of cells are you getting? Are you getting mesenchymal stem cells? Are you getting hematopoietic progenitor cells? Are you getting those mononuclear cells? So all these different cell types have different purposes. What I do is that I incorporate these different types into one product. And then you have to put in the right place. Do you put in the veins? Do you put it in your joints? Do you put it in your hair, your face, your penis, vagina, or any other places that you think may be beneficial? So that's the art of it. We can put it into the nasal membrane and help deliver the cells that way. So there are a lot of things you can do. But what I believe is umbilical cord derived stem cells is more potent and is actually safer, because your own cells not only doesn't secrete as many growth factors and doesn't have the ability to differentiate into different tissues, but it also has lost some of its ability to recognize cancer. So it tells everything to grow, and forgetting some of the cancer cells, you shouldn't tell them to grow. You should tell them to die. But the younger source of cells, like from the umbilical cord, still retain pretty much the entire intelligence of recognizing cancer. So there's no evidence that these cells will promote cancer. They're actually very anti-cancer. But if you use your own cells, you're risking the possibility of exacerbating existing cancer. So you're very young, but as we age, the chance of getting cancer gets higher and higher. Age is the biggest predictor of cancer, and we all have cancer cells emerging. If your immune system is not robust, then the cancer will thrive. So, you need to put in the body things that are not going to exacerbate that, right?
Right.
Is that you should put in your body things that can help you reduce the chance of these cells proliferating.
Is stem cells, is it a treatment or is it preventative? Would a person coming in?
It can be both. It can be both. So for example, I don't have any illnesses. I am pretty healthy, and I'm 54. So since I was 45, yeah, 9 years ago, that's when I started giving myself IV stem cells. And I've been doing that every 3 months. So people have commented when they look at my videos, they're like, yeah, you do look younger than you were, this many years ago. So there's a chance of getting younger and younger and younger. If everybody's age is reduced by 7 years, then 50% of the chronic illnesses are gone. Yeah, so that is the 50% reduction, basically. So imagine a population. If everybody gets regular IV stem cells and becomes 7 years younger, biologically, chronologically, of course, you're going to have a bigger number, but who cares? But biologically, if you're in a younger state, then half of the world's suffering from illnesses will be gone. Can you imagine? So that's the preventative side. So in my clinic, we do both the preventative and the treatment. So I would say, probably 30% of people who come to us, maybe 20%, 20 to 30% are for preventative. They just want to be healthy, they want to stay good, they want to look young, they want to have a longer period of vibrant life where they can travel, have fun, and not be sick. And the other 80% really are dealing with some serious health issues.
Mm.
So we treat patients, wide range of patients, from as young as 4 years old, and autism kids, to people who are in their 90s with dementia, and and anywhere in between. So people with all kinds of autoimmune issues, heart, lung, liver,
Mm.
kidneys, or reproductive organ issues, a lot of brain conditions, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, traumatic brain injury, MS. Um,
Mm.
so and really, musculoskeletal issues are a kind of bread and butter. That's easy for joints and tendons, etc. But we help people in every regard. Or people who want to be prettier, they want more hair, so we do hair
Mm.
restoration. They want to have better skin, we do facial, we do facials. So
Mm.
there are a lot where they want better sexual function. So they want better erection
Mm.
and better sensation and satisfaction. We can inject cells in the sexual organs as well. So very wide
Why
range.
is this not more wider, like
Mhm.
done on a
That's the
wider
question,
scale?
right? Whether or not it's FDA approved, it didn't matter because people really want to be well. You think you're going to
Yeah.
stand in the way of people and their health? You think just because of your little profit, corporate profit, that's you want to suppress information, that's going to win? I'm sorry. The drive for life, to have a vibrant life is so strong in humans that we're going to search. We're going to find it, grab it. We're going to somehow get it. So in this country, because we can provide stem cell therapy as a tissue transplant, is not regarded as a drug unless we start to expand the cells, grow the cells, and change the
Mm.
cells. Then we're providing a tissue transplant. So a lot of doctors are able to provide the treatment, even though systemically is not supported. Um, the You can't do advertising on Google. You can't say I do stem cell therapy. Facebook is going to shut your ad down, so they're not even run it. Instagram, they're just not run it. It's just not, they consider it a miracle cure. It's just so funny because they only have to learn a little bit about research and take a look at the thousands and thousands and thousands of articles published from all around the world. So some of the, of course, insurance companies are not covering it. Some malpractice insurance are not covering stem cell therapy. So all these are obstacles to doctors providing this therapy. Yet the
Mm.
number of stem cell practice have quadrupled in the last 5 years, despite all this.
Yeah.
That just shows you that you cannot stop. You
Mm.
cannot stop. This is like trying to contain fire by paper. So you put a paper around it. You think you're going to contain it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's the cat's out of the bag. The game is over.
Yeah.
We're here. This is the therapy. This is what's saving people's lives. This is what transforming people's lives.
Mm.
So they want it, and you can't stop it. So eventually, the medical system is going to adapt, but there's going to be a bit of a fight because the
Mm.
existing model doesn't like it.
Once again, though, like, why do they not like it? Is it ethical reasons? Is it that there are like
No, because they can't
clinics
make
and
money from it. It hurts their bottom line. Do you know how many people I've helped who got off medications? You think Big
mm.
Pharma likes me?
Right.
Who likes that? You because of what you did, people don't need my products anymore. Who likes
Mm.
that? Right? If your bottom line is to make money, then you definitely will not like people who take you
Mm.
away from the money you think you were going to get.
Mm. Now, it must be quite hard to get access to the stem cells that, you speak of. You mentioned the umbilical cord, but then there's also so many factors and elements that play into actually it being a viable source that you can actually use on your clients.
And there are actually a lot of stem cell companies out there producing a variety of products, and the qualities vary a lot. But what I did was I actually started my own stem cell company because I saw a lot of problems in the industry because a lot of people are going into the field with the goal of making money. I have nothing against people making money, but you've got to get your priorities straight. Because first is that you provide value. You do the best you
Mm.
can, you have integrity, you provide what's best for people, for healing. And
Mm.
then the money will come because you are providing value. But what I've seen in the industry is that the priority was completely different. So I started my own company. And what I did was not only that, I found the best manufacturer to make the products for me, but also I am inventing and putting together new formulations of cells to maximize the benefit.
So you mean you're like making it in the lab?
Yeah, so I contract with laboratories that I've that I trust to make my unique products for me.
So you've basically found how these stem cells chemically come together and how does it work, and you're manufacturing them, creating them yourselves in these labs, so that you don't have this issue of like a, a quantity, basically.
Yeah, the quantity is not an issue. We have plenty of babies born every day, and we have plenty of cells to help people. It doesn't take a whole lot to produce some profound differences.
Mm.
That's what's fascinating. It doesn't take a whole lot. People go overseas thinking they need 200, 300 million cells. It's just because they're using expanded cells. The 200 million expanded cells is not as potent as 20 million unexpanded cells, which is what we use. So when you use the original native kind of untampered with cells, is so much more potent.
Is there a possibility that your body can reject certain stem cell?
That's the beauty of, you see, with traditional bone marrow transplant, you're really getting somebody else's stem cells, but that's usually adult to adult. When we say adult, a newborn baby is an adult embryo, like from a biological perspective, it's a full adult, it's fully formed. But when you use younger sources, so adult, of course, we don't get transplants from a newborn. We usually get it from you know people at least a few years old, right? So you can do but usually bone marrow transplant is between two full grown um, people, and the chance of rejection is pretty high. And when you use a high concentration of mesenchymal stem cells, you have even less potential. There's Mesenchymal stem cells is what's used to help prevent tissue rejection in organ transplants. So they actually have such calming effect for your body. So it prevents rejection.
Can you tell me, would the placenta be, they always say like mothers should eat their own placenta or drink their own placenta because there is stem cells rich, it's rich in stem cells. Is that connected to this? Is that correct? Is that true?
You can certainly. In some cultures, they do eat it. You can get some peptides, some maybe growth factors can be intact, but when you cook something, you destroy a lot of things.
Mm.
So I think a better way is to extract the cells. This is, thanks to modern Western technology, we know how to extract cells and keep them alive, right? Amazing. So we can do that. But when you eat it, then you're getting a tiny, tiny fraction of what these tissues contain.
Mm.
So, but you can still, yeah, you can do it, and you will get some benefit.
What are some other ways that you're able to obtain these stem cells?
Well, you can get it from fat. So somebody can do liposuction on you and get fat, and then kind of spin the what they get. They usually use fluid to kind of flush out the fat cells, and a lot of the stem cells are sitting along the blood vessels that are supplying the fat. So you're really getting the stem cells from these blood vessels. So you can separate them out. And then you can get cells from the dental pulp. I don't know of any clinic that actually is doing that. You can get it from menstrual blood. I think there may be some overseas clinics that may do that.
What are some of the controversial feedback that you get, or the clapbacks that you might be getting from people when they hear about what you do and how you source your stem cells?
Oh gosh, some people say, are you killing babies? No, these are very happy, healthy baby. If there's anything that's wrong with the baby, we're not even going to take the products because we're worried about the quality of the cells. They're absolutely in the U.S. You cannot use fetal stem cells. No abortion is I mean, no one does does this. So it's not legal to use aborted baby as a stem cell source. Some people think it's illegal in the U.S., and that just can't be farther from the truth. I've People fly from all around the world to come see me because in the U.S. it's legal, especially what we do, because we use unexpanded, unmanipulated cells. It's considered a tissue transplant. So we're not using that as a drug, so we don't need to go through drug studies. And we just need to properly inform patients that this is a tissue transplant, it's not FDA approved, and it's experimental. And then we can provide the treatment. IV stem cells on myself every 3 months for 10 years. The amount of cells that actually stay in your body is really, really tiny, minuscule, because the cells generally go into your body, do its work, and die. That's the common, fate of these injected cells. They have a lifespan. So
That's really cool.
probably over 90 or 95% of cells actually die. So you only have a very small fraction that actually stay in
Mm.
your body.
What is your biological age?
And biological age testing, I don't think is very accurate, to be
Okay.
honest. So I know a lot of people are doing the testing. There are a lot of factors that affect it. So I don't know how much stock I put into them, but I'm not a huge fan of it at this point. Yeah, there are a lot of factors that can affect
Mm.
those. So
Yeah.
people are so proud. It's so funny. I hear people say, "Oh yeah, I'm 63, but my biological age is 39." But then I look at them, I was like, well, you look 63. So
Right.
how do I, like
Mm.
where's this biology? How come it's
Mm.
not manifesting? Right? It should be everywhere. It should be, if your vibrancy is from internally, it's everywhere. That should shine
Mm.
through your skin, right? That's a huge organ of your body. Why
Mm.
is it not coming through your skin? So, yeah, that's why I'm not a huge, I don't put that much stock in it.
You absolutely do look stunning. I mean, you look very, very
Oh,
young
thank
for
you.
sure for your age and or whatever. So, have you ever done like Botox or anything as well, or is this fully and fully just stem cells?
Yeah, I do Botox occasionally. When I see that when I smile, there's too much smile lines,
Yeah.
but I don't do them very often. I do like them because I think it's
Mm.
really, I think it's a very natural way. I know people don't like injecting toxins in their body.
Yeah, Joy, that was such an informative episode. I really, really appreciate you being here. Like, it was just this perfect balance of like your own journey, but tying into the work that you're doing, and it all sort of comes together, and it makes such sense. So, yeah, thanks
Yeah.
for being on the
Well,
podcast and
you
sharing.
pried a lot of information out of me. I
It's really
talk more in
interesting.
depth about my journey than I have on any other podcast.
Yeah.
So somehow you got it out of me.
Thank you so much for this. I'll definitely put all of your links on the description as well so people can access your book and your work and everything else as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, and if anybody was interested in doing stem cell therapy, they can come to my clinic in Los Angeles. Our clinic is called Chara Health, Chara Health. Yeah, just contact us and
Yeah.
whatever. If you want to live longer, live better, or you have serious issues that you need help, then just let us know.
If you enjoyed the episode and would like to help support the show, please follow and subscribe. You can rate and review your feedback on any of our platforms listed in the description. I'd like to recognize our guests who are vulnerable and open to share their life experiences with us. Thank you for showing us we're human. Also, a thank you to our team who worked so hard behind the scenes to make it happen.
Lucas Piri.
Stefan Menzel.
The show would be nothing without you. I'm Jenica, host and writer of the show, and you're listening to Multispective.